Good morning. I'll call the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority monthly meeting to order. There are no items from the chairman. I understand we have a resident to be heard. David New? Yes. If you'd like to come forward and speak into the microphone.
How many minutes do I have?
How many minutes do you have?
Yeah.
How many minutes do you think you need?
Well, this is just an issue I've been having.
Okay.
So I didn't know if there was a time limit or not. So.
About 3 minutes.
Well, I'm just gonna tell it, and if you want to pump the brakes, that's fine. I don't think is there a time limit in these meetings? Do you know?
About 3 minutes.
Okay.
And if you could say your name again, please.
My name's David Amoutpour. I live at 1301 West Hefner Road. I come before this parking authority. I had a really rather bad experience with Embark. I applied to work at Embark in a position, administrative assistant position, or technically it was something else, but I was brought in to interview. I took an Excel test. I came in for a panel interview. I was told that with this position, they're actually hiring two people, two different positions for this one posting. I went through the panel interview. The second position was in y'all's safety department, or standard operating procedure department. Had a panel interview with them. I took a written test to an editing test. After that, I was told I was hired. I was sent an offer letter. I was sent to go take a drug test, take a physical, a non-DOT physical, checked for whatever. I was told the Friday before I was supposed to start, I was supposed to start February 6th, and I was emailed at like 4:45 on Friday that they were rescinding my job offer and that they were going to make it a temporary position. Or I was told that it had always been a temp position, 90-day contract. I was never told that. I've sat through several interviews for it, and at that time I had quit my other job. I had a week before that. I was ready to work, to show up 8:30. You know, this was a job that was degree related and everything. And so at 4:47, I got an email saying they had rescinded it. I live in rural Oklahoma, and so it was lucky I saw that. I tried reaching out to HR. I couldn't get it. Finally, somebody called me back, and they explained to me that there was a mistake, and that had always been a temp position, and that I was just misinformed. I was really upset because I had put everything aside in my life for this position. Not aside, but I was ready. You know, I jumped through all the hoops. And, you know, I asked questions. I'm not a journalist, but I have a degree in it. And so I asked follow-up questions. I asked, when was this discussed? When was, you know, because I even asked in the interview if this was a fully funded position, which to me that would mean that it's a fully permanent, fully funded position, and they said, well, you were just misinformed. I went through the HR, I talked to Laura Miller, Mike Shaw about this, just doing my investigation, because I told them, ma'am, that's 15 minutes till 5, like what? And they said, well, Laura Miller said she was just informed of this decision 30 minutes before she contacted me. You know, I called Mike Shaw, and he said, you know, I'm sorry. And I was like, well, is there another position I can do? Is there anything else? Because I really wanted to work for Embark. I believe in Embark, and I think that Embark serves our city the greatest. They said that they didn't have any, that they had two, a bus driver and you detailed the bus, which is fine, you know. I can't do those positions. When I was going through the physical for my first position, the doctor said that I am taking a non-DOT position. He said if you were to do DOT, he inferred that I wouldn't be able to pass a DOT physical because of my blood pressure and eyes and all that jazz. And so I can't do those positions. And I feel like, while I understand, like, business is business, y'all have funding, you know, I contacted Mike Shaw. I said, what is this? He's like, you know, it came down from a Jason Fairview, I was told that day, or that Friday, and that person was really insistent that we made a temp position. So I was like, okay, I'll call the temp agency that Linda Miller, or Laura Miller, provided me. I called them and they said that the hiring position was $16 to $18 an hour. Pressed them a little bit and they said it was hiring at $16.24, and it was a temp to permanent position. I was confused because I was under the impression that Mike Shaw told me it was a 30-day contract. So I called Mike Shaw again, asked him. He said no, it is a 90-day contract, and so I was confused. I'm almost done.
Heather,
Promise.
can you give us
Yeah.
the countdown?
Okay, just long story short, I'm not mad at Embark. I'm mad at the fact that this happened and that I am very privileged that I have parents that can support me, that I can, I tucked and rolled. Not everybody can tuck and roll in this city. Not everybody has the resources to pay rent. If my parents weren't able to give me $500, I'd be homeless or face an eviction. I'm not putting that on y'all, but I would really, really encourage y'all to go into the HR department. Maybe they need more funding. Maybe they need more clarification when they come to posting. But I think as a publicly funded entity, this doesn't need to happen again. And that's all I have to say. If anybody else would like to talk to me further, y'all have my contact information. Thank you.
We appreciate your comments, and we're sorry that there was a misunderstanding. So,
I don't believe it was a misunderstanding, and I would love to go back and forth with anybody who could explain to me how it was a misunderstanding,
okay,
but I'm not going to argue in front of y'all right now. I
Okay.
just would
Thank-
like for y'all to be informed about that and do with what you will.
thank you. Okay. Item 4 on the agenda is approval of minutes from the February 3rd COPTA board meeting. Is there a motion to approve these minutes electronically? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, vote electronically. Minutes are approved. Moving to the consent docket, there are 3 items on the consent docket. Would any of the trustees like any of the items pulled for individual consideration? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent docket? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item 6 is items for individual consideration. Item A is the amendment number 3 and change order number 3 on the Northwest Bus Rapid Transit Center downtown at North Broadway Avenue and West Main Street to provide service north on Classen Boulevard to Northwest Expressway and Meridian Avenue with a cost of $686,525.99.
Good morning.
Jesse.
Yeah, so I'll give a little more detail on amendment and change order number 3. You've got the full packet in your, or the full information in your packet, but we'll focus on the big ticket items. So the first one is in amendment number 3, the TSP detector card. So in amendment number 3, there's really more items associated with TSP. That's transit signal prioritization. But the big one is a TSP detector card. That's essentially the card that goes inside the traffic box, right? And so during the engineering, the quantities were included. The quantity table was included in the drawings. However, there was a 0 quantity included in that, so it wasn't actually bid out to include those TSP detector cards. This item will put those detector cards into the system, essentially putting transit signal prioritization along the entire Classen corridor. Okay. All right, and then the change order number 3, there's 2 larger ticket items there. The first one is the shelter backlit signage, and that one's $199,000. So that is essentially, so if you've seen our streetcar stops, right, on the back of the shelter, they've got a panel that has the name of the shelter, or name of that stop, and the stop previous, and the stop after that stop. And so this is kind of twofold. This will add additional lighting at the shelter, but also provides additional wayfinding, right? So if you're at that stop, you know that if I need to get to this other stop, I can get to it, go in this direction, or maybe the stop I need to go to is behind me, right? And then the other item is the pylon upgrades, just a little over $182,000. So this item provides some additional infrastructure inside their pylons, so we're constantly looking at ways to make improvements, right? And so these pylons are improvement over our streetcar pylons. And so what they do, what is included in this change order is additional battery backup that provides additional 600 minutes of battery life. Say the power goes down to the pylon, we have additional 600 minutes of battery life for that pylon to be able to push information out, still be able to provide information for our customers. And also provides additional sensors, right? So we want to make sure that we're constantly monitoring our pylons, and this change order adds temp sensors. So if, say, the pylon is getting to a high temperature or something like that, we could go out and see, maybe a system is failing or something like that, and that'll help us be able to maintain the life of the pylons. So that is the height or the big ticket items for amendment number 3 and change order number 3. A couple of things to focus on here is that our original engineer's estimate for the project was $17.6 million. The project actually came in at $4.4 million under that, at $13.2 million. With change orders 1 through 3, change orders and amendments 1 through 3, it brings our total contract price to $14.8 million, still $2.7 million under our engineer's estimate. Be happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Jesse on this?
Jesse, you might just remind the trustees, if you would, we are in the process of working on another change order that will come to the board. And if you'll recall, when we originally bid the project, there were a couple of stops that were still in design. Do you mind just elaborating on that a bit? Because that'll be coming next month. And
Yeah. So with change order and amendment number 4, we're anticipating including the stops at Northwest 31st and Classen. And we're also going to be including the increased stop at the increased size stop at Blackwelder and Northwest Expressway. So essentially, pretty large change order for 4 stops. So just in anticipation of that, and we anticipate bringing that with the next board meeting.
Appreciate the warning.
yeah, well, and I think too, just as a reminder that when we bid the project, we knew we still had a stop to design. The Blackwelder stop there, Jesse mentioned, we wanted to expand that, and so this was expected.
Yeah.
What does the expanded station, what's that look like? What do we talk, I guess I must have missed some of that.
Yeah, so with the implementation of the BRT, we're going to have other routes that shift also. And so it essentially makes it kind of like a mini hub, right? So we've talked about the stops at Northwest 23rd and Class and how those are going to be a larger shelter, right? Because we're anticipating increased traffic. Well, we're anticipating the same thing at Northwest Expressway and Blackwelder. So it's going to be a larger shelter because of the anticipated increased traffic, and pedestrian traffic and customer traffic at those stops.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
it does.
Jesse, can you bring pictures next time?
Absolutely.
When we approve it.
Yeah, I'll bring a
you.
rendering. Yep, you bet.
Okay,
Anything else?
are there any other questions on this project?
I saw the pedestrian light go in at 42nd. What's the progress on that particular intersection? I'm tickled pink about that one.
Yeah. So, and that'll be included in my rapid update. But we
Okay.
have installed the pedestrian signal there, and we don't want it to go live until we get closer to the implementation of the BRT, right? So, but there will be a period when we start pre-revenue service where that light will be functional. That way, people have plenty of time to get used to it, and we'll also make sure that we reach out to NewView, and make sure that they understand how that signal works, so they can inform their customers also.
Good, okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Now, is there a motion and a second? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please vote on the electronically. Motion passes. Item B is a change order number 3 for the project at Regatta Park Improvements, Zone G, Boathouse District, at a cost of $6,030. Jason?
Yeah, we just about have our Regatta Park improvements wrapped up. This should be the last change order for the project, we believe. And as mentioned, total change order amount $6,000. The additional cost is related to removing a call box that was located on the landing. Not only removing that call box, but then once the call box was removed, we had to redo some of the paver areas and such. And then also installing or upgrading an ADA ramp to make the landing accessible. With that, this change order represents 1.79% increase to the original contract amount. Total revised contract, $440,763.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments about this change order? If not, is there a motion to approve? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, vote electronically. Motion passes. Items C and D are both to either authorize and direct the municipal counselor to prepare and file necessary paperwork into individual claims or to go into executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss these two items?
I move that we go into executive session
Would that be at the heel of the docket?
at the heel of the docket. Thank you for clarifying.
Yes. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We have to take an individual roll call vote, so
Yes.
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 Okay, motion passes. So those items will move to the heel of the docket.
Apparently, we need to vote on each one of those individually to go to the executive session.
Okay, so that was for C.
Okay.
And so is there a motion to,
I
for
would
item
also
D?
move on item D, that we go to executive session at the heel of the docket.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded?
Yes.
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 Okay. Item D is approved. Okay, moving on to item 7 on our agenda is ratification of claims and payroll. Is there a motion to ratify these items? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to item 8 is to receive the financial reports. There are 3 different reports. The first one is our budget to actual ending January 31st. Jason, are you going to?
Yep. Happy to make some comments on the budget to actuals. And then also, as we're discussing the financial reports that are in your packet, just as a reminder to the trustees, the interim financial report is prepared basically mid-year in advance of the annual financial report that is finished at the end of the fiscal year. I don't have prepared comments on the interim today. The trust just received a update of the last financial report last meeting. But I did just want to mention that really the difference in that interim versus the budget to actual is that would be a resource for the trustees to be able to compare year over year. Whereas primarily on the budget to actual, we talk about where we are now versus the budget. So that's a difference there, a nuance I wanted to point out. And then the other financial report that we have in the packet is the financial report for the pension. And again, that's simply included in the packet for the trust to receive. That's already been presented to the pension committee and received by the pension committee as well. So back to the budget to actuals, I've got just a few comments on 3 of our different areas of service. So starting on page 2, this is our transportation operations. And essentially looking at 7 months of the fiscal year, our operating revenue exceeds our expenditures by about $948,000. A few highlights for you, starting with the revenues that I just wanted to direct your attention to, is the first two lines there, our fare box revenue and our fare media sales. Both of those have continued to be over budget. We're about 6% over budget on our fare box and about 5% over budget on our media sales. And again, that's just representative of the ridership that's continuing to, I guess, increase or come back from our pre-pandemic levels. We, as staff, have been looking at that and factored some additional growth into next year's budget. The other revenue that I wanted to point out to you was the federal grant revenue. I know we talk about this about every month, but I did want to point out a variance there of about $1.8 million, meaning we've actually received or requested a draw for $1.8 million less than what we had anticipated through 7 months of the fiscal year. Now, keep in mind, we've talked before, part of that we've intentionally not drawn because we spent some CARES and ARPA money instead. But you see that gap growing because we've had a formula grant in process with the FTA for several months. So it means we've had it turned into the FTA, they've been reviewing it, they have not basically made that money or that grant available for us to draw on until recently. So we just received actually an update this week, no, maybe it was last week, but very recently, that that grant has been approved by our regional office. We should be able to draw or request reimbursement on that grant maybe as early as next week, but nonetheless in March. So what that means is, as we do our next reimbursement, we'll catch a lot of that up because we'll be able to draw from months that had passed that we didn't have that grant in place. But the trustees, you all will not see that on your financial report until probably May. So telling you we're getting the grant, we're going to be able to draw on that. Unfortunately, the next couple times we talk about the financials, it'll probably still show us behind on that federal grant revenue. So anyway, just thought that probably deserved an explanation. Then finally, as we get down into expenditures, you can see we have some considerable savings on our expenditures, primarily in personal services, other services and fees, and then payments to the city transportation fund for primarily wages and chargebacks. However, the caveat here is that we are still in negotiations with the ATU. And so any pay plan adjustments that are agreed to as part of those negotiations will certainly impact any savings that we're projecting, right now in expenditures. But with all that said, as I mentioned, we're $948,000 in excess of what of our expenses are through 7 months of the year. So moving on to parking operations, again, parking is recovered nicely this year. Through 7 months of the fiscal year, our operating revenues exceed our expenditures by $1,017,000. Looking at the revenues, the largest contributor to that is our monthly contract revenue, coming in at $370,000 more than what we had budgeted. Most of that is attributable to contract parking spaces in the Cox Center that we did not anticipate when we were developing our budget. And then expenditures are actually over target. Keep in mind, we do intend on reconciling our parking garage operations services at the end of the fiscal year. And then finally, directing your attention to the streetcar, I believe that is the last, that's page 7. Again, here we show revenues in excess of expenditures by $931,000. However, would direct your attention to the first two expenditure lines, streetcar operations and services and fees. Both of those show considerable savings, $342,000 under budget on streetcar operations, $180,000 under budget on services and fees. The reason this budget to actual is showing that kind of savings is because the Herzog invoices, our contractor for the streetcar, we've paid those through November, whereas normally we're 1 more month in arrears on this budget to actual than we normally are. So, if you plug those numbers back in as expenses, then obviously our operating income drops rather dramatically. It's not 931,000, it's considerably less. So happy to answer any questions on that.
Are there any questions on the budget to actual report? Okay, then is there a motion to receive the report? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please vote. Motion passes. Item B and item C, I guess we'll take them separately. Item B is a motion to receive our interim unedited financial report. Is there a motion?
I just want to say that this should say unaudited financial report, not unedited financial report.
Yes. Okay.
It may be unedited. Certainly the agenda was unedited.
Okay. Item B has been moved and seconded. All in favor, please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item C then is the COPTA Employee Retirement Trust interim financial statement, unedited, I suppose.
Or not.
And is there any questions or comments about it? If not, is there a motion to receive this report?
Uh-oh, it's tired of us.
It's moving slower today. Oh, we'll try it again. So item C. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please vote electronically. Motion passes. Going on down to our program reports. The first one is, Jesse, are you reporting on the bus rapid transit update?
Good morning again. We'll jump right into it. So I wanted to give a quick update on our bus delivery. So as we've mentioned in the previous board meetings, bus 2221 and 2222, those will be entering line entry in April, and we anticipate those coming back in June. Our fleet and facilities manager and I, we went to Anniston, Alabama, and we inspected the third bus, 2224. And after digging into the bus, we determined that we would not be accepting the bus as is, and that we would be expecting a brand new bus, right? So we met with New Flyer and we talked through the process, and we are anticipating that bus entering line entry in August, and anticipating that bus coming to Oklahoma City, receiving that bus probably the middle of October is what we're anticipating.
Is that one of the buses that was damaged in
It
the
is.
fire?
Mhm. Yeah, so the first two buses, total loss. The third bus, not a total loss, but after the inspection, we determined that it was a total loss. Yep. But like I said, we're anticipating that bus being in Oklahoma City the middle of October. So with our anticipated revenue start date of being October, that means we would actually start revenue service with 8 buses instead of the anticipated 9. However, we expect that we can provide full service with that. That would mean that we would have 1 bus as a spare instead of the 2.
So we need 7 buses for.
We need
for
7
full
buses for
service.
full peak service. That's correct, yep. All right, so moving on. So as we're beginning to start up new systems, we always look to our peer systems, how they're doing things, right, lessons learned. And so myself, Michael Scroggins, Kristen Torkelson, and Eugene Fritz, last week we took a trip up to Kansas City. There's really 2 items that we wanted to focus on while we were there. We wanted to take a look at the Kansas City BRT system, and then we also did a first article inspection of the pylon. And so this picture here is us inspecting the BRT platforms that they have, and just kind of seeing how they operate their system. And so we learned a lot while we were there, and we anticipate taking those lessons learned and bringing those back to Oklahoma City and implementing those in Oklahoma City. So I mentioned the first article inspection, and so that's what this picture here represents. And so we visited Dimensional Innovations. They're the same company that built our informational pylons for our streetcar system. They're also building those informational pylons for our BRT system. Really a cool place. Like if you ever get a chance to go to Dimensional Innovations, it's really cool. They do all kinds of neat technology stuff, and so that they do things like giant statues for football stadiums and all kinds of cool stuff. But they also build our pylons, right? And so there's a lot of technology that goes into that. And so we wanted to make sure that they were meeting our criteria and our specs. And so that's what we did while we were there. So you can see the exploded view of what our pylons look like there on the right, and then us doing that first article inspection of the rapid pylon on the left. So one thing to note is if you look at the schematic on the right, the colors are swapped, right? So compared to the one on the left. So the one on the left is incorrect. And so that's part of the reason you do those first article inspections, right? Is making sure that they're being built per spec. And while we were there, we didn't notice that they were painted the wrong color. They painted the colors opposite. And so we'll be making sure that our system meets our spec and that they'll all be coming in with the correct paint colors. And then I like to always say if there's not a picture, it didn't happen. So there's a picture of all of us attending that Dimensional Innovations and with our pylon there in the background. All right, so we'll talk about our construction of our system. So Trustee Cooper, this is 42nd and Classen that you were talking about earlier. So you'll notice that the pedestrian infrastructure is in place. We will maintain the bags on those signals until we start the implementation process. So we want to make sure that they're working correctly, that the timing is working correctly, that our pedestrians can make it safely across Classen as intended. So those will stay bagged until probably around summertime whenever TLS comes in and starts doing all the traffic signal implementation. And then you'll also notice in this picture to the left there is the inbound stop at 42nd and Classen. That stop is essentially complete. So one of the cool things that we were able to do with the construction of this was we were also able to rebuild the driveway of New View, right? And so that's kind of twofold. So one of the benefits to us as an agency is that's the driveway that we also use when we're taking our customers to New View. And in the past, because of the angle of that driveway, we would essentially be dragging the bumper of the vehicle, right? And so we've tried to work out every possible way that we could do that without damaging the buses. And now we have solved that problem with the rebuild of that driveway. One more thing, so also in this picture to the right is the outbound stop at Northwest 42nd and Classen, showing complete. This is our outbound stop at Classen Northwest 13th, complete, or nearly complete, right? When I say complete, that means the flat work is complete. We have to install all the amenities. And then construction is ongoing at Hudson and Northwest 8th. So one thing to point out here is that we have opened up northbound traffic at Hudson here. However, the southbound traffic at Hudson remains closed. We are working on the water lines and getting all of the infrastructure below ground completed. Additional note here is that we have opened up the parallel parking that is in front of the businesses there. Again, trying to do everything that we possibly can to be a good neighbor and make sure that we allow access to businesses. And then the end of the line, Main and Broadway, so this is right downtown. This is also near where one of our park and ride locations are going to be. This is the stop at Main and Broadway, and work is ongoing there. All right, so what work is going to be completed over the next 3 weeks? So the next few slides here is going to show that. So we are going to continue with construction of the sidewalks along Northwest Expressway, just east of Portland. This makes that connection back to the right-of-way, the ODOT right-of-way at the highway, but again, providing access for our customers to those retail locations and the grocery store there. Construction continues at 13th and Classen. We're looking to get those wrapped up this month. And as I showed earlier, construction continues at Hudson and 8th Street. We're looking to get that completed toward the middle of this month. And then also more work, Main and Broadway. And Classen and 42nd, work continues. All right, so this is our big chart that shows completed work. So Northwest 10th and Dewey, work is complete there. This is work that was completed since last time we talked. Work at Classen on 42nd is complete. Work at Northwest Expressway and Penn is complete. A couple of things to note, as we noted earlier, with change order number 4, we'll have 4 stops that are coming for approval, so we can get those implemented and get construction started on those. At Northwest 56 in Portland, there is a redesign that's being done there, so it was essentially closer to the intersection at, at Portland on Northwest 56th Street. As we were going through the right-of-way acquisition process, we determined that if we shifted the stop about 120 feet to the east, we would not have to acquire right-of-way, and so that's the direction that we're moving in. Still maintain the service, still maintain the connection, just slightly shifted to the east, so we're doing a quick redesign there. All right, as far as percentages of completion, so the MC-0619, this is essentially the stops, and the amenities, we're about 28% complete there. The MS-0123, this is the pedestrian and bike infrastructure, we're essentially about 27% complete there. And then the water line betterments, this is the water line work that goes underground, where we're working with Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust to make sure that if there's an opportunity to improve the water line, we're doing that while we're below ground. We're about 38% complete there. And overall total project, we're about 32% complete. And as I mentioned in every meeting, I'll go ahead and mention it in this one, these percentages are reflected through our invoices with Rudy Construction, and we've received up through January 31st. So all of the work that's been completed in February is not reflected here, but as you've seen, as you've been out on the alignment, more work than what is reflected here is complete. Okay. And that is it. That is the presentation. Be happy to take any questions.
I just want to say, when will the bus shelters and pylons start going in? I know that you saved that towards the end, but if we're targeting middle of October, what's your schedule for?
Yeah, so the shelters, we look to start receiving those around May, toward the end of May, and we'll start installing those as it's like a big Lego puzzle, right? So you got to put it all together. So we anticipate about 3 to 4 days of installing each shelter. So it's going to take a while. It'll probably take about 2 months to get all of those installed, but we're anticipating getting those started toward the end of May. The handrail, we anticipate that starting shortly. They're going out and doing field verification measurements, and then they'll start the fabrication on that, so you'll start seeing that go up. And then the pylons, they're going to be delivering those in 3 phases, and we anticipate that starting toward the end of May, and hopefully being wrapped up with the delivery in Oklahoma City in August. Okay. And then it takes about a week total for each pylon to get installed. So it's about a day to get one pylon installed, and then about 3 to 4 days to get all the electronic equipment up and going and implemented. Yep.
Okay. Are there other questions or comments?
Yes. So, very excited about this service, as you all know. I've mentioned this in the stakeholder groups. I'm going to go ahead and say it here because I think the audience might be helpful, like you all as audience, as fellow trustees. My concern is many of the residents who live within the half mile of the route in Ward 2, particularly as we start getting out to Coronado Heights, Rolling Wood, neighborhoods which, unlike Paseo and Crown Heights, when they're built 100 years ago, narrow driveway for one car because that's just where we were in the 30s. But as we started developing west, 2-car garages, wide driveways, a car-centric design. I know you all know this, I'm just reminding you, because what that means is that the neighbors in those neighborhoods, unless they travel, unless they're going to Kansas City, they don't use public transit, a lot of them. We know from our own data who's riding our current system. I say all that to say that I think one of the coolest things Embark has done, it was right, I can't take credit for it, it was right around the time I came on, but just before, when you all implemented night service on 23rd, those door hangers that us residents in Paseo received, educating us on that service coming, I just think something like that is necessary this time with this service. I don't know when, because I'm not a marketing person, but I know Michael and his team is really good at that. I know you all are probably getting information from other systems, but I mean, I was just on a call yesterday with someone who I walked them through the entire, system in terms of its route, but this was a person who doesn't use the internet. Now, I can get mad at them all I want about that, but they don't use the internet at all. So they're missing a lot of our electronic communication, whether it's on social media or the website. And I have a lot of retirees in Ward 2, and they're not seeing what information we're already putting out. Stellar and award-winning, we know, information. So I'd like to just say publicly now, in anticipation of the fiscal year budget conversations that are about to happen, I think we have to have a plan of educating at the very least the people within a half mile. So, and I think a door hanger is the and I know that requires manpower or people power. So we might think of volunteer opportunities, like with OCU, for instance, or OKC Beautiful. There are a lot of supporters of Embark, and I think we got to tap into them in this instance.
I think your point about the door hangers is a good one, but I will say that unlike night service, this project's been so visibly constructed. I mean, with night service, it was just sort of invisible. We stopped at the same stops. We just went longer every day. So you really didn't necessarily see it when you were out in the community. But I think that the obvious construction of platforms and things like that is going to help us because people have been seeing this for a while. So I think it's a good idea to contact some volunteer organizations and work with that.
And the other exciting thing is it's 12 to 15-minute headways, which you don't need a computer to know that you can walk to it, and you're going to get a bus. It's not bus slow transit, it's bus rapid transit, which will connect downtown with the Northwest Corridor. And so it ought to be pretty impactful.
Both good comments. I can assure you, residents will not know that 12 to 20-minute frequency unless we tell them. We have to tell them.
That's what the stakeholders meeting hopefully has gotten us off the ground, and
I hope so. I am saying it right now.
you're a part of it, so.
To this trust, we have got to fund and make sure there is a robust outreach. Let me be clear why. When did the streetcar launch? December of 18? We are now this many years out with rhetoric in our city that's anti-streetcar. And I worry if we don't get this right with the first launch of the first BRT, with 2 more coming, we will create a stigma that is undeserved. It doesn't honor the work of anyone in this room. That is why I just can't stress this enough. I just can't. It has to rise to this level of the trust.
Meg?
Yeah, to that note, I think it's less about the awareness and more of like how to use public
Yes.
transit, because
Yes.
this is a demographic that I think they, rightly or wrongly or whatever, they have a perception of public transit and what it means to use a bus and how to do it and how to pay and how to interact with the bus drivers and all of the things that go into public transit that I think some of us up here take for granted of, oh, it's easy, there's an app, there's, all of these things. I think doing some like ride-alongs and making it very low barrier so people understand. I know that the marketing team is probably on this already, but I just to echo Trustee Cooper's statements about it, this is a neighborhood, and a lot of these neighborhoods are neighborhoods that do not need public transit in the way that some of our riders do need public transit. So I do think there is a learning curve there that maybe we're also needing to talk about. Thank you.
I also, what I love, in addition to the door hangers, I think, and I'm saying it this early, because I think it gives us time to be creative, but I mean, utilize folk like me and whoever else wants to be a part of this, like Meg, like ride-alongs, like maybe it's about getting some of the neighborhoods who are neighborhood advocates in those neighborhoods to join us in this way. Like Rollingwood has a very active neighborhood association, Military Park, Putnam Heights. I just can't echo enough what you just said. It is such a learning curve for so many people who for decades have a stigma about public transit. And we have such a cool opportunity here is what I'm saying, so.
Good points. Are there any other comments for Jesse or questions?
I have a question. How late will the buses be running?
I'm sorry?
How late will the buses be running?
Yeah, so Monday through Friday till midnight, Monday through Thursday till midnight, Fridays and Saturdays till 2 a.m. Similar to the streetcar service. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thanks.
The next presentation is the Marketing and Community Engagement Report. Michael? That's a good segue.
Perfect. Well, thank you for having me this morning and the chance to talk about the work that's been going on. I am really pleased to hear so much support for communication. And it really has been important as we have launched our other services, but as pointed out, the need to really be repeating the message over and over again. It's not just a one-time effort, but really taking time to repeat the message over and over again to reach and penetrate those audiences that aren't using all of the standard technology and/or media that we take for granted every day. As we look at the coming months, and we'll talk about this more as well over the next few months, but the OKC Moves initiative is one that is really a part of the marketing efforts right now, as assembling all of the meeting materials and putting those pieces together. And part of that also includes working with our partners at Cook Communications. They're helping us not only prepare for that, but also listening when we have those meetings to hear how we can best communicate once we need to build awareness of the service changes should they be implemented as they're proposed here. As you'll see later on, and some of the different things that you've heard from Jesse already, launching the Northwest Line is a very complex project. It's not only requiring that we look at just along the corridor in which that route is traversing, but it's also requiring us to look very closely at all the services that we already provide, right? And taking an opportunity to integrate that into our greater system. And so that's what OKC Moves is all about. And the complexity also continues to go into the systems that we're implementing as well as all the communication materials. And so one thing, it's kind of like a domino train. And so one thing just kind of perpetuates a need to do something else or to change or to update. And so we're continuing to find those and take inventory of those and work on those as well. One thing I want to also do is he still here? Yeah, Chip Nolan. I want to just commend him for the incredible work he is doing as the project manager for OKC Moves. He and his staff, Carrie and Sam also, they often, I mean, this is like on a daily basis, if not numerous times a day, are supporting our entire operations division and my team as well in making sure that we can put the service out every day. Their efforts often are unseen, invisible to many, but I just want to really commend them for the work that they're doing and just want them to know how much we appreciate all that they do for our communities. Another very active part of our division in marketing is our visual storytelling. This is just a small inventory of some of the videos that we've produced since I last spoke with you in December. So not that much time has passed since we've last talked, but we've even produced more videos. We do a lot internally. We're working to communicate more effectively internally as well. What we have found over the years is that our operators, being our first line of communication with our customers, sometimes weren't always the first to know about what things were going on within the organization or the things that took place here. So we have made over the last few years a lot more effort to continue to make sure that they're aware so that they can also help share the news of what's going on with the organization and the services that we're providing with our customers. If at any time you'd like to see any of these videos, some of these internal videos, I know Jason and Heather put together different communication pieces for you. We'd be glad to share those through those channels. One of the times of year that I love the most, and that's this time that we're just entering. Oklahoma City is just about to burst with so many new sights and sounds and smells from the spring time era, and we have so many events that we help support as well. And Embark makes sure you can enjoy all of those. If you're at Will Rogers Park, or if you're attending one of the events downtown or throughout the city, this is a great way to get to know your community in a different way. And so we will be taking effort over the next few months to continue to encourage people who don't use transit to find a way to get to know their neighbors in a different light. And this is one way to do that, is using transit to enjoy these different activities that are ahead. I want to point out now that we're only a month away from ferry service starting again. So April 1st is just around the corner. And so we'll be launching that. And we also will see additional bikes come onto the street with Spokies as we bring the classic pedal assist bikes back. And so you'll see even more Spokies bikes out there. And we'll continue to see, I think, people take advantage of that service as well. In the technology world, we are, like Chip, we are constantly working to make sure all the pieces are in place for the launch of the BRT service, but also for the relaunch of several routes and services, if you will, because we're integrating all of these services into new ITS systems. So just to give you, again, another glimpse of kind of what the small IT team does, just in the last little over 2 months, we've had over 250 tickets, IT tickets, that we're constantly supporting and working through. We've closed all but 10 of those. We also have, a number of projects that are underway. You're quite familiar with the roadmap. That was something we talked to you about over the last year in regards to our strategic planning. And 32 of those projects require a very close IT hand involvement. And so there's quite a bit of interoperability and interdisciplinary systems that require just a lot of attention. And so we're grateful to have a good team of people who are trying to balance that. And sometimes we feel like we're always spinning these plates and making sure they stay spinning. But we are really excited, though, about what efficiencies we'll gain once we go through this next few years of transitioning to these new systems. Well, I don't have any surprises here for you. This was covered earlier. Just another view of the new pylon. I did want to assure Trustee McElhaney that we did get the colors right, and we asked them, because I know we were, that was one of the areas that you helped us remember to switch those colors from the gray and the green were in two different places, but it will be corrected. And one of the things that will help also that Jesse mentioned was just the upgrades that we've made to this 2.0 pylon, if you will. And that's going to allow us to better serve or take care of and service these pylons. Currently, if we need to make any changes or try to figure out what might be going on with the streetcar pylon, we have to physically go out to every pylon and look and see what's going on. It has to be reported by someone else, what is happening with that pylon, if it's down, if it's not showing something. These systems will have remote access so that we'll be able to monitor some key areas from our office without having to be there at that site. As we add 32 and the potential to add maybe 90 more over the next 3 or 4 years, 5 years with additional BRT lines, we'll continue to look for ways that we can create that efficiency so that way we can make sure we're spending the most practical time on them and spend it just in the best way possible. We also have brighter screens that meet a new standard for outdoor technology. And then we also have some health monitoring systems in there as well. Just as a reminder of all the systems that we're looking at implementing over the next 3 years, everything you see in kind of this honeycomb type fashion, those are all things that are changing and upgrading and have new configurations, new hardware, new reporting systems, and it all requires that we learn how to use it. So that in and of itself is going to be an effort, and I am grateful for the folks right behind me here who are all doing everything they can to make sure that we're successful in implementing this. And we want to thank you again for trusting us with investing in this technology and putting so much effort into it, because it will benefit us for many years to come. This is on the BRT CAD AVL, that's the real-time or vehicle location. This is that timeline, just a little update. We are awaiting the final design review documents this month. We'll be approving those, and then we'll be going, have a couple of months where they're ordering all the parts, and they'll put together a complete system. And like Jesse mentioned, we went to Kansas City to see a first article inspection. They're gonna come here, Clever will come here, and basically put it all together and show us that it works before we install it on all the buses. And then once that's proven, that's part of the factory acceptance testing, it will then be installed on all of the BRT vehicles that are available. And with that, glad to answer any questions you might have. And again, thank you for this opportunity, and also encourage you to try to tune in to any of the community meetings that are coming up. If you can help let others in your areas know, or those stakeholders that you interact with every day, we would love to talk with them face to face. This is the first time we've been able to meet face to face with our customers and our constituents like this since 2019. So we're really excited also just about the ability to reconnect.
Okay, are there any questions or comments for Michael and the marketing and community engagement? Thank you, that was a good report. Okay.
It's not December 22nd of 2022. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Unedited.
Okay. Item number 3 is a presentation on the Safety, Security, and Training Report. Eugene?
Good morning, everybody. I have nothing from the KC trip in my presentation. I have exciting safety updates. So part of the bipartisan infrastructure bill is required for us to do de-escalation training. So we hired a company, and we did train the trainer for de-escalation training. So these are some pictures of that, of the training that we did. In there is, we have bus operators, route supervisors, maintenance supervisors, so it's required also for maintenance, so operations and maintenance. These are some of the topics that were covered in the class. And it was anything but death by PowerPoint. It was very, very dynamic, powerful trainer. We did role-playing, we did exercises, everyone was involved. We plan to do this in our next quarterly training towards the end of March. And the trainers are practicing, we're practicing on a weekly basis. We're getting together because it's going to be the bus operators and the supervisors that's going to facilitate this training. The next thing, so we have a contract, we've been working on this for social services. So we are working with the Mental Health Association. These are some of the tasks that they're going to be tasked with. So we will have a dedicated person from the Mental Health Association assigned to Embark. They will be at the transit center. If there's any need on buses, they will go out to the buses to facilitate any incidents that are happening out there, or the streetcar as well. And it'll be one person, yep. And then hopefully by the next board meeting, we will have the contract ready to present here.
That's just a lot to ask one person to do. I mean, with the streetcar and the buses.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we,
well,
go ahead.
I was going, we'll see how it goes. You know, we're going to start with one, and maybe if we need more, then.
Yeah, I mean, we realize we could use a lot of caseworkers, if you will, to help us. But again, I think it is important to maybe pause just a minute. This is something that we have not ever really provided, as a transit agency, but just trying to be responsive to the community's needs, our customers. We have, issues on our vehicles that are similar to, what you might see, downtown, individuals with, potential mental health issues or just needing assistance. And again, our route supervisors do a terrific job. They do a terrific job of intervening in a lot of these situations, helping out. Obviously, calling the police is usually the last thing we want or have to do. So our route supervisors intervene a tremendous amount of the time. But at the same time, they don't have all the specialized training, that some situations require. And so this is, we use the term pilot a lot, but we are kind of looking at this as a pilot program to have a mental health professional dedicated to our modes of transportation. And again, we admit there's probably going to be way more volume per day than one person can get to, but those individuals, hopefully, that this caseworker can contact will have a dramatically different and improved experience than what they may encounter now. So I appreciate Eugene and also the safety department and our procurement department for working through this, because again, we didn't really have a template to go by. We haven't done this before, so it took a little while to get together.
So I'm just curious also if part of this is training for the bus operators in recognizing when they're dealing with a mental health situation.
We had a previous training on that from somebody from Norman came up and did training for us, for that. This particular contract is just for the one person, but that's something that we can explore with them to see if they do have training that they could do for the bus operators as well.
Is the case manager going to be assigned to the safety department? Is that where they're to work with the supervisors?
Yeah, so someone from my department will be like the program manager over them. So they'll report to them and be basically working out of the transit center. Starting from there and seeing where they're needed.
So a couple notes, and I appreciate the comment about it being, that there's no template. And then I also appreciate, saying, wait, do we need more? I think a couple things for me. One, at some point, I think a presentation from Mental Health Association about their thinking as it relates to this would probably be very helpful for us. But then, relatedly, sorry, there's a lot of moving pieces in my head on this topic. So, of the 39 public safety recommendations which council approved a year ago this month, remember one of them is I can't remember the exact terminology, but a crisis intervention.
Crisis intervention advisory group, and then a mental health response
I think
connected to that.
It makes a lot of sense to start having conversations, about what our upcoming alternative response to mental health calls is going to look like for the city. So that's coming, I think, Q2 this year. And I think having including this case manager in those conversations, and then ultimately making that upcoming advisory board aware of this work, and just really thinking holistically, because we're just in uncharted territory now. I mean, I know that Denver has their alternative response to mental health calls, and it's quite successful, and y'all know I'm a huge champion of it. But I just think this is an opportunity to kind of plug in. This is tremendous work.
Right.
I think this is a really good thing, but I think there's a holistic picture that this could be a part of, and I think you being the assistant city manager over those 39 recommendations and their implementation kind of helps us here.
Yep, agree.
Yep, I agree. All righty, finally, the fence. So the gates are in, the fence is at substantial completion. These are just some pictures of the fence. So remember, the fence, we're allowed to use 1% of the security for 1% of grant money towards security. So part of that went towards the fence. Also, part of that went towards the de-escalation training as well. And, so back to the fence, can't forget. So big kudos and accolades for Kristen, doing a great job with the vendor, and also Lo from Public Works.
So will visitors to the transit offices have to go through an intercom system to get the gate opened?
Yep, so you can't see it. So this is the exit gate. So over to the left in the picture, there'll be so employees will badge in, or the public will have an call into the front desk, and then it will open. So the gate on the left will swing open, or open by like that,
Yeah.
and then the exit gate slides.
Yeah, we have this situation already in place on the kind of the maintenance end of the facility, like for deliveries. Our
Yep.
folks making deliveries have a call box, and that's how they get in.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Eugene. Okay, I think at this point we need a motion to receive our program reports. And I don't see a screen yet for that. To receive the program reports.
I don't need them.
I hit refresh, and then it came up, and I came out by myself.
Okay. Well, okay, yes, there it is. If you hit the little round circle and refresh. So there is,
So
it's not been moved, but it's been seconded. So,
Okay.
moved by James, okay. At this point, please vote electronically.
You might have to refresh again if you
Okay,
vote.
motion passes. Okay, at this point, we go ahead and ask for comments from our trustees. James, Meg, Robert, Laura, Steve? Okay, there are no comments. At this point, we will go ahead and move into an executive session. Thank you all. Okay, so we have item C, which is to authorize and direct the municipal counselor to prepare and file any and all necessary paperwork to effect a settlement on behalf of the trust without admitting liability in the claim. Is there a motion? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please vote electronically. Okay. Motion passes. Item D is to also authorize and direct the municipal counselor to prepare and file any and all necessary paperwork to effectually settle on behalf of the trust without admitting liability. Is there a motion? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Item D passes. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
We don't need one.
Well, then let's
We
adjourn.
can just call it over.
We'll call it adjourned. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you next month.